Passage Ash, once when you mentioned 5 minutes ago about angels, but also demons having the ability to possess um,
Mm.
form, visible form, material bodies. I didn't plan to ask you, but as well, while I'm listening to you, this question comes to my mind, and it's okay if you don't know the answer. But
Hmm.
still, when it comes to cryptids of all sorts, let's talk about either Dogman or I don't know, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, werewolves, and let's assume that these creatures exist.
Yes.
Okay, your theory, your understanding, at least to this point, which can change in in your
Hmm.
in your future, of
Hmm.
course. But so far, do you think that these monsters, these visible beings, that they learn that they're demonic beings, spirits behind these monsters who learn through witchcraft to somehow obtain bodies? Or do you think that they have possessed something, maybe an animal or some creature, and they have somehow came into this symbiosis of two beings, whereas demonic person and a sort of an animal? I know it's a vague and strange question, but I'm just curious for myself.
No, well, I mean, you do have tradition in some of the second temple literature of chimeric type beings. Whether that's the possession of an animal body, or strange relations with an animal to produce some kind of corrupted offspring. So that kind of thing is out there, like that is in the tradition. Let me say this. One of the interesting things that I have come across is there's this idea of subtle bodies. That these ideas, or that these types of beings have what's called subtle bodies. And so this is actually in the cryptids chapter that I've written. And I'll just be very brief with this. But Let me find it here. It's a quote from a Scottish minister by the name of Robert Kirk. And so he wrote a book called The Secret Commonwealth of let's see here. I don't want to butcher it. It's called The Secret Commonwealth of Elves, Fauns, and Fairies. And he was a folklorist, but he was also a Scottish minister between the years of or sorry, he lived back in the 1600s, but his name was Robert Kirk. And it's interesting because he talks about these types of beings back then, like in the 1600s, and he's a minister. But he talks about this bodies thing that we're talking about here. And so, people like Jonathan Pajot, who's, he has the symbolic world. He just released a video here recently on subtle bodies. And I watched it, but I was writing about this a little bit before I saw his video on it, because Robert Kirk's talking about it. But so he says this, talking about these types of creatures. He says, these Siths or fairies, they are called Slay Math, or the good people. They are said to be of a middle nature between man and angel, as were daemons or demons, thought to be of old of intelligent fluidous spirits, of light and changeable bodies, like those called astral, somewhat of the nature of condensed cloud and best seen in twilight. These bodies be so pliable through the subtlety of spirits that agitate them, that they can make them appear and disappear at pleasure. So Robert Kirk talked about the idea of, and this was somebody who, man, this was big. The idea of fairies was big in the Scots Irish people. Like they had special holidays, blessings set aside for blessing stuff, so that the fairies wouldn't come out. And it's in the chapter. But this was a big part of their religious life. But the way that they looked at it was that they somehow possessed these subtle bodies that were able to be kind of made up of the elements in some ways, and that they were able to appear and then disappear. Um, yeah, I don't really have quite an answer to the question, but there are various possibilities out there. The idea of subtle bodies could be one. You've got the whole chimeric tradition out there as well. There could possibly be various answers to the question. So.